Dajahao, welcome to the Dengis propaganda outlet. My name is Georg Wawra and we are here in Suzhou. Today I want to talk a little bit about why is China important to socialists in the West. First of all, we often hear the argument that socialism doesn't work. China is the perfect example that socialism works extremely well. At the time of the revolution, China was one of the poorest countries in the world. It was chaotic, the life expectancy was extremely low, the population was mostly uneducated, and now it's one of the most developed countries in the world, leading in the most fields of science and technology. So if somebody says that socialism doesn't work, we can just point to China. But an even more important reason why China is important for socialists in the West is because it is an example from which we can learn which reforms do work in practice and which ways don't work. So we learn what ways we can follow in certain fields of politics. First of all, we see that in the economy, a poor planned economy doesn't fulfill the needs of the people. In China, you can get everything, while in the former Soviet Union and other socialist countries of Eastern Europe, the people had everything they needed for survival. But there were still a lot of things that the people just couldn't get. For example, small things like cigarettes or even a Coke. There is the famous comedy from the 60s from the Soviet Union, Brilliantovaya Ruka. And it's about a man who returns from a journey from the West, and it's an action comedy movie. The content is not so important, but when he comes back, his wife asks him, "Did you try Coke? And how does it taste?" So we see that even in mainstream movies in the Soviet Union, this was a topic. The people wanted to try out things they knew from the West. In China, this isn't a problem. In China, you can buy everything. You can make vacation everywhere you want. The people are free. And that's why nobody sees a need for a big change. While in Eastern Europe, many people say socialism was better. But they say, yes, we didn't have this in socialism. And if we would have had reforms like China, everything would be fine now and we would live better than under capitalism, of course, but we wouldn't have this lack of certain products. Another point why socialist countries like China are important for the Western left is because we can learn from their practical policy. We can learn which is the right policy, which is important. For example, in science, we have many Western leftists who follow the modern academic science from the US, which is completely idealistic. All those gender stuff, for example. This isn't popular in China at all because it's anti-scientific. So if we want to follow a socialist policy, we should reject those modern idealistic Western science. But at the same time, there are people in the West who celebrate Lysenkoism and reject genetics. If we look at China, China is a country that is leading in the field of genetics. So we should also reject this neo-Lysenkoist approach of certain Western communists. Of course, there are also many other aspects where we can learn something from Chinese policy. For example, in economics, education, immigration, foreign policy, and so on. I will also make videos about those topics. For the moment, it's important that we should keep an eye on China and learn from its great example of building socialism and the proof that building socialism is possible and that socialism is successful also today. In this sense, 下次见。